Hello, freshmen. I'm here. I know it looks like prison, but I'm actually at a college, as you can see here. Um, we are in Louisville with the Ed Rising people. Shout out to Jazz and Gavin and Mark Lee for being with me today. We're going to do this real quick. Shouldn't take much time. Remember, you're taking notes over this, paper notes, and there'll be a 3-question quiz over it on Monday, and also a 3-question quiz um, on Monday over what we do on Friday. So just be ready for that, and here we go. Okay, let's make this beautiful. Hey, there I am. Oh, but can I move myself? Yeah, this is cool. All right. So remember yesterday what we said about political socialization and how it is what your how you're going to be how you're going to become a political person. We talked about the most important ones. The most important one is family. We talked about education. This is a big deal. The higher you get up in school, the more you participate in politics. That doesn't just mean voting. That means protesting. That means writing letters. That means getting involved in interest groups, trying to push forth an agenda. um, and for the media, we get a lot of our learning from TV and social media. And you probably know that old people watch the news a lot more than young people. So here's a quote from our textbook that I thought was pretty interesting. He says, "Those children who begin to develop positive feelings towards the political authorities will grow into adults who will be less easily disenchanted with the system than those children who early acquire negative, hostile sentiments." Think about what he's saying there. He's saying that if you're raised in a positive situation, that you're going to be less hostile once you become an adult. So you probably agree with that. People who grow up in bad homes tend to have bad things happen. And so part of the political socialization that schools provide is to show you what it is to be a good person and learn when you mess up and make mistakes, and those rules being fair. And a lot of people don't have that. Here's another fun quote. "Schooling is perhaps the most obvious intrusion of the government into American socialization." And that's true. What you believe is really based on a big part of what you believe is your schooling. And so that's the truth. And once again, more education, more participation in the democratic process. Remember, you can pause this thing because it is a video. All right, so polls, let's talk about them. So polls are when we have a situation where we need to understand something about the public. And so we give a poll or a survey. You can call it a survey too. And so there's two ways to look at this. So we want to figure out what the people believe. All right. And so because the people are going to be represented by the government, right? The people they elect. And so, um, and so as they, um, hang on. So if the government knows what the people want, then they can be more reactive. They can say, well, I'm representing the people and I need some kind of data to know what the people really think. If one person comes at me and says, hey, the road is bad, and then nobody else comes at me, I know maybe that's not the biggest problem in the world. So it's a way to be responsive. A word I would put here is pro-polls, a way for them to be responsive. If you're anti-poll, you think that what we do, what politicians do, is they get um, they should be leaders, right? But instead they're followers. They're gonna get all this data and they're gonna say what they should say, what they need to say, and do what they need to do what? get reelected. Here's probably the most important thing I'm ever going to say in GoPo. All right. The purpose of someone in power is only to stay in power. It's only to stay in power. And so when we look at what does a politician do, they'll always say, "Oh, I'm doing this to help the people." Yeah, they are, and it does help the people. But what does that get them in return? It gets them votes. And then when we talk about corporations and the intrusion of corporations in modern government, we can see that a lot of times the politicians are not just listening to the polls and the people, but the important people that are pulling the strings. And a lot of times these corporations and giant business millionaires kind of run the show. Another thing that you may be anti-polls about is the bandwagon effect, and you've probably heard the bandwagon effect before. It comes from like way back in the day when you would have like literal horses carrying a wagon down the street in a city, and there'd be a band playing on top of the wagon, and everybody's like, "Yes, this is rad. Let's all jump on the bandwagon." Get it? And so, but if all you do is jump on the bandwagon, if all you do is what seems popular to your people, then you're not really going to be as responsive and um, eh, to things that you may see as important. All right, so this is another big GoPro thing. It is a major trend, and that trend is we are becoming less and less trusting of the government. Look around the classroom right now, and you're going to see a bunch of people that don't trust the government. Maybe Mungia, maybe he trusts the government, but anybody else, we know better. Just kidding, Mungia, you're my boy. So why do we not trust the government? Well, it starts in the 50s at the end of World War II, and it's kind of a whole lot of stuff rolling together. If I were to fix this, I would have put the Cold War here before Watergate, because the Cold War starts at the end of World War II in 1945. And you got to understand that, like, when we were growing up, we would have like little cartoons on Saturday morning that would be like a little turtle, and he would say, "Hey kids, if you ever see a big flash, all you have to do is duck and cover, and you'll be fine." And we knew that was bullcrap, and we were growing up in a world where it was possible that we could just get microwaved by nuclear weapons, right? And so that's going to lead people to be really critical of the government, especially the government screwing up. And here's two major ways the government screwed up. The first one is Watergate. Okay, the story about Watergate is Watergate's the name of a hotel in D.C., and it's where the Democratic national headquarters were. Okay, so the president at the time, Richard Nixon, hired people to break into the Watergate Hotel and steal Democratic Party secrets. Now, has this happened before? Probably. Have the Democrats probably did this to the Republicans before? Probably. But the problem with Watergate is they got caught, and Nixon was like, "Hey guys, do anything you can, but for God's sake, do not say Nixon sent me." And the cops come into the hotel and they're like, "Hands up," and the guys are like, "Nixon sent me." And that's Watergate. And so if the top level is corrupt, then what's going all the way down, right? And so Watergate's a huge reason people are so critical of the government. So for the Cold War, they're afraid. They don't know if the government's taking care of them. They don't know if the government's keeping them safe. And then when it comes to when it comes to Watergate, it's we can't trust the government. The government is a liar. The government is not fair. And so that permeates still today. And then another huge mistake that I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, but another big thing that led a lot of people to distrust the government is Vietnam. Vietnam is the first war that most Americans are against, and we're going to see a lot of we'll see a lot of Americans standing up against the war, and that's a new thing in the United States. I always tell the story of my friend Adam, his dad. So one day, his dad was in high school, and the principal came on the intercom and said, "Okay, um, uh, I need all the senior boys to come to the gym." And he lines up all the senior boys in the gym, And this army guy comes in. He goes about halfway down, and he points at this guy, and he says, "You and everybody else go back to class. You and everybody this way, welcome to the United States Army." And a lot of those guys were shipped out really quickly. And so, there's a difference between World War II, a war that we're fighting because we've been attacked, a war that has a really clear enemy and a clear purpose, whereas Vietnam. Vietnam didn't attack us, and Vietnam was really about keeping control over Russia and keeping power in the government, or sorry, keeping power in the world stage. And that's something that a lot of people couldn't really relate to. A lot of people couldn't find Vietnam on a map. And so it's a big thing. As we get into the 2000s, we're going to get 9/11. We're going to get economic problems. Probably the biggest thing people gripe about Obama about is he had a lot of drones that did a lot of spying, and a lot of people say that the spying that he did, he also did on American citizens. Again, that's shady, right? And then one thing that's unfolding right now is Corona, the Rona, Corona. And the thing about that is the government, we turn to the government to help us. And a good percentage of the people think the government screwed up. A good percentage of the people think we should not have shut down in 2020. And that's, whether or not that was a good or a bad thing still is to be seen. But that's another thing we can add in. And I would definitely have something about COVID here and about the way that people trust the government. And I know I keep saying this is important, this is important, this is important, but this is another thing that just shows up on the GoPro exam all the time. And it's this word political efficacy. Just a second. Political efficacy is the idea of it's the idea that my government listens to me and reacts to me, and what I do actually matters. That's the thing about political efficacy, and what you need to know is that number, how much I believe my vote matters, is going down. Okay. And so political efficacy, the belief that my participation really matters, is going to be something that's going to decrease. And so that's going to leave us today at the end of the lecture. It was pretty short. You're welcome. Tomorrow we'll pick up on what is a liberal and what is a conservative. Remember to take these notes, and you guys are awesome. I love my freshmen, and have fun in Rock Castle. Bye.